Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. Today is Sunday, the 8th of April, 2018, on the Gregorian calendar, and it's been a couple months, so we're going to do some book reviews of the latest books that I've been reading. So we'll start with City of Inmates, which Ingrid and I read together, and we finished actually to date. It's by Professor Kelly Lytle Hernandez, who teaches at UCLA. This copy of it she signed for me at books of it she did with Critical Resistance, and it's about how Los Angeles came to be the jail and prison capital of the world by telling the history of the development of that industry in LA, and with a special focus on the use of the prison system to repress dissent. She has a whole chapter about the Flores Magón brothers and the Mexican Liberal Party during the times of the Revolution. But it's really, really good. So that's a very solid recommendation. I think we're gonna invite her out and maybe see if she can come and maybe give a talk out here. If you would be interested in that, like or let us know. But City of Inmates, definitely big recommendation. From looking at things from abolitionist and point of view, and one that acknowledges settler colonialism in LA. Before that, or actually this one I was kind of reading simultaneously on my own, is the Hank Williams biography written by Colin, Escott. I've been studying country music for a couple of months now by listening to it and reading about it, especially the people that make it. And this is a pretty sad book, mostly because it was a pretty sad life. Yeah, it was, especially the end is very kind of grotesque, but I think it's something that if you're interested in country music and how it became what it is today, then probably worth reading and looking into. If you're not really interested in country music, you could probably skip it, but I thought it was interesting. Before that, I read this book called Becoming Ms. Burton by Susan Burton, and she has a co-author, Cari, Lynn. This one is also signed by the author. She had come down to the Shades of Africa while Ingrid and I were up in Oregon and Washington, but I got Vanya down there to get her to sign it for me, and so I got this. This is kind of interestingly connected to City of Inmates because she's also writing from a perspective of somebody who's been fighting the prison and jail and criminal industrial system. So, but she was kind of like the first, or one of the first probably, big stars of that movement of, re-entry, as they call it now. And it's her personal story, and it's also very kind of chilling at times, but it's a good book. And yeah, I got a lot of respect for the work that she does based on this book. Before that, I read this book called Knights of the Road, A Hobo History. I picked this one up at Ontario City Library. And it's about hobos, which is kind of interesting because there's a big debate going on right now about homelessness and what are the problems about it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the thing about people not having any place to live is much older than this latest recession in the economy. It goes way back. This book is interesting because at that time they were really making a distinction between hobos, tramps, and bums. The difference being like whether they're itinerant or not, or laborers or not. But yeah, I mean, the uptight people were freaked out by people not having a place to live, not conforming with, middle class expectations and values, and just like they are now. And so, I like that because it puts some perspective on it, from the 1910s to 1930s. Knights of the Road. This book is I also got it signed by the author when Óscar López Rivera came to town. He gave us a series of speeches in the LA area. He was a former political prisoner, now free from the Puerto Rican independence movement. And I really like and collect books about political prisoners. I read a lot of that genre, so this one is a definite must-have for me. The fact that it's signed is very touching, and the fact that I got to meet him and ask him questions and stuff like that, I was just really super happy to have that experience of being able to read this book and then go hear us talk to him about it. Cool thing about this book is got a lot of his artwork too, because he was a painter while he was inside, and so he's got, you know, portraits of Gandhi and just some cool artwork in it. But he doesn't really tell a lot he tells the first part of the story. Some parts he definitely skips, but it's really good. This book is called I Am Raymond Washington. It's by Zach Fortier. Raymond Washington was the founder of the Crips in LA. And this guy, Zach Fortier, was a cop like in Colorado or something like that. So that's really the biggest deficiency of this book is he tries to, I guess, kind of project himself into that point of view, but there's no way that a cop can really understand, I don't think, what was going on in South Central LA in a way that generated a leader like Raymond Washington. So that's he also goes off into like weird tangents, like the fact that he read, a Joseph Campbell book. But beyond that, it does provide like some, at least some solid data. Like it's got the birth certificate. Talks about it's based on a lot of interviews with Raymond Washington's family and people that he knew. So probably it's the only book you're gonna find out that's this close to the origin of the Crips. Especially since he talks too about how Tookie Williams' book is more like fantasy than reality, which is probably true. So on his tip of history of LA, this is one of the threads that you'll see. Okay, there's two more, so we're just gonna go for it. This is a book I picked up in Baja over New Year's. We were in Rosarito and got this from the Museum of Anthropology and Natural History. It's called Raíces, Profundas, Corazones, and Ancestrales, and it's an oral history with María Emes Boronda, who is one of the Kumeyaay people down there, indigenous to that area. And it's basically interviews with her. She talks about her life and growing up, and shares some of the stories that she heard. And there's, I don't know, it's for me it's kind of hard to find this stuff. So when I find it, I really try to grab it, especially so I can share it if anybody wants to read it. But this is the word in their own words. The elders who came before us and were taking part of care of they were part of that tradition of taking care of the land, and from many generations back. She talks too about how people came in and took over the area that's now the Valle of Guadalupe, where the wine country is. So she reveals some of that history that tourist industry is probably happier that we're not learning about. So this is a one-of-a-kind book. And before that, I read the Ojibwa warrior, the Dennis Banks autobiography. When he passed away, I realized that I didn't have it, so I ordered it and read it. And it was really interesting, especially because he tells the story of how AIM was founded. But also because some of the stories I heard, like remembrances of from people that I know from the activist community. So yeah, I don't know, it just brought some of those memories back. Really interesting and moving story about Dennis Banks and his activism, and gets into some of the personal life stuff. But yeah, so those are the books that I've been reading, I guess, since the beginning of this year 2018. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them, and we'll be back in a couple of months after I read another stack like this. Bye.